A documentary about a Quebec paper artist and TV host aims to charm you with its beauty and artistic spirit. And it may succeed whether you grew up watching the programs of Claude Lafortune or not. Here to tell us about the documentary The Paper Man is its producer, Tanya Lapointe. Hello, Tanya.
Hello.
Tanya, you've produced this wonderful documentary, The Paper Man, about Montreal television icon Claude Lafortune. Many of our viewers have known and respected this man for years, but for our viewers who are just learning about him, please tell us who this fascinating man was.
Truth is, he's always been part of my life. I didn't know him personally, but I did grow up watching him on television. And he was every Sunday morning had this television show where he would make these very small paper characters in these giant paper sets, and he just made paper come alive. And for me, it would ignite my imagination and my creativity. And later, when I became a reporter, he was no longer on television, although he was on television for almost 4 decades. And then I met him again, and it was like meeting a childhood hero. And he was still making these paper sculptures, and we became friends. It was a little surreal, honestly, to become friends with your childhood hero that you grew up watching on television.
I can only imagine how wonderful that would be. Now, what drew you to Lafortune's life and legacy as a subject for a whole documentary?
Pure curiosity, and I think also perhaps a selfish desire to understand how this now 81-year-old man was still living out of passion for paper, scissors, and glue. I've always been obsessed with growing old well and being happy, and I guess I was trying to figure out, like, this guy has a secret recipe to life, and I want some of that. But then beyond that, it was truly to honor his work, because I was feeling that he was being forgotten, and yet that he had such a rich legacy, and I wanted to remind everyone just how important he was in our culture, in our French Canadian culture, but also how his art inspired so many others, such as me, to follow their dreams.
And that art certainly is absolutely amazing. Can you describe for us, what could this brilliant artist do with paper?
Well, as I said, when I was young watching him on television, he was doing a show a week, so he had to be very efficient and quick. But when I met him in his 80s, he was making these very complex, intricate characters. He would focus mostly on historical figures, and these sculptures made their way into museums in Quebec, and he made paper look like other materials. It was creating the illusion of a velvet jacket or hair in the wind. And I think that was what was so magical about it.
Absolutely. As you said, he could create fabric and feathers out of paper. Many of his subjects were religious in nature, and I just love what he did with birds. He also sculpted composers and artists such as Van Gogh. And what I learned from watching the documentary was that Claude did not always consider himself an artist, and neither did the art community. Why were there questions about his being an artist?
In Claude Lafortune's case, because he was on television speaking to children, he wasn't taken seriously. It was taken as a subculture, and oh, it's cute, and but there's true artistry in what he was doing, and I think that came later. But he had been, if I may use the expression, branded as a children's TV show host, that the depth of his work was always overlooked because people were only remembering those kids' TV shows. And then I think that was one of my goals with the documentary, was to peel back those layers and show that there was so much more, and that he really was a true artist. And it was a challenge even for him to say that he was an artist, to recognize and say those words, "I am an artist."
Dis-le, dis-le, je suis un artiste.
Je suis un artiste.
Je suis un sculpteur de papier.
Je suis un sculpteur de papier.
Il l'a dit, Tanya, il l'a dit.
Yeah, sometimes truly talented people are not fully appreciated until much later in their lives or even after they're gone. Our TV icon, Mr. Rogers on PBS, he really wasn't fully appreciated and just adored until after he had passed away. And Lafortune has been described as being a cross between Mr. Rogers and the painter Bob Ross. Now, beyond the art of paper puppets, what else made Claude Lafortune a special person to view on TV?
That's really interesting, to make those comparisons with these iconic TV figures, because I think they really did influence how we perceived society. And that was the case with Mr. Rogers. If you've seen the documentary on him and then the biopic, you realize, that uh, what he was talking about to children went beyond, the puppets and, feeding the fish. And Claude Lafortune was the same way. So he was making these beautiful sculptures, but behind that was um, a message of acceptance. He did an entire show where he would welcome or invite children with differences, whether they be, from different cultural backgrounds or living with different challenges. He would embrace those differences and celebrate them on television. And I grew up watching this, celebrating also these children and understanding that, we were all different and we could understand others if we were asking the right questions. So I think for me, Claude Lafortune was not only about the visual offering that he was bringing into our televisions, but also a deeper understanding of what it was like to be human.
And speaking of being human, I noticed a theme of mortality running through the documentary.
Mais ça peut être conservé combien de temps comme ça?
Ben, dans un état comme ça, moi je vous dirais que je vais avoir le temps de mourir.
OK.
And on the subject of mortality, something rather unexpected and tragic happened while you were creating this film.
Yes, well, this is spoiler alert in a way, but it's part of this beautiful story. When we started doing the documentary, Claude was 81 years old, and we filmed over time, and he kept asking me, Tanya, when are we done? When do we finish? And I said, well, we can't be done because there are still events. He was receiving awards and there were new exhibits, and I just thought the story isn't finished. And then in April of 2020 is when we were all hit by the pandemic. And unfortunately, Claude's health was already very frail, and he passed away on April 21st. And so beyond the documentary, I was losing a friend, and it was really difficult. But for me, it became urgent to tell the story because so many people were saying publicly and on social media how he had impacted their lives. And I said, we need to tell this story sooner than later, as fast as we can. So it was a very fast process, but it was also a very difficult process because I was looking at hours and hours of footage of me with, my good friend Claude, who had passed. But it was also a way of cherishing those moments together.
And those are beautiful moments you're sharing in this documentary. As you said, Lafortune received some very high honors, including an honorary doctorate that you captured him receiving. Your film has received some high honors and praise as well, including the Audience Award from the Whistler Film Festival, where it premiered, and your husband is no stranger to accolades in film. Denis Villeneuve directed Blade Runner 2049 and the 2021 version of Dune, for which you were the executive producer. What's his opinion about The Paperman?
Well, Denis was probably one of the strongest supporter of this project because I didn't have, a plan or a strategy for making this film. So along the way, even though I was having these wonderful moments with Claude when we were filming, I did have doubts where I thought, well, where am I going with this? Should I keep going? Because I was filming Dune and coming back to Montreal for the doctorate degree and spending for 52 hours and heading back to Budapest. And Denis kept saying, no, you're doing the right thing. You're doing it for the right reasons. Just follow the path. And he was quite moved by the film, and he kept and still keeps telling me that the film will live on. We don't know in what form or for how long, but he's experienced making movies for a very long time, and so his advice to me was just follow your instinct because this film has legs. And anyways, that's his opinion. I hope he's right.
Well, Tanya, I want to thank you for creating such a sensitive work that I hope will help preserve this man's life and legacy.
Thank you so much. I'm so very grateful.
Mountain Lake PBS is proud to present The Paper Man, a documentary produced by Tanya Lapointe. You may also head to the website of Les Productions sur le Toit for more information about the film.
Spotlight is supported by the Glenn and Carol Pearsall Adirondack Foundation, dedicated to improving the quality of life for year-round residents of the Adirondack Park.